Assalamu alaikum everyone. Today we will be reacting to a clip taken from this amazing video that I'm sure by now most of you have already seen, where a Muslim woman single-handedly, intellectually slaughters 20 Christians. Now, before some sissy Islamophobe comes and says, "Oh my god, slaughter is such a violent word, like these Muslims are always so violent and barbaric and always talking about their jihad and whatnot." Listen. I understand your frustration. أنا فاهم شعوركم.
Meine Arbeit für richtig hältst.
I understand how frustrating it must be seeing Christian apologists getting cooked wherever they go. It probably bothers you so much when you keep seeing the rapid growth of Islam, especially when you give your blood, sweat, and tears for the cause, but it just ain't working. Billions of dollars are spent by the Zionists controlling the media, trying to portray Islam in a negative light, hoping to brainwash the masses, but the effect is always the opposite. My advice to you is the following. You can relax. Take a deep breath. You don't need to resist anymore and waste your energy and waste your money. There were people better than you, more powerful than you, more influential than you who tried to diminish the name of Islam, but they flopped. And you will flop as well. In fact, you're probably flopping right now in case you haven't noticed. Listen, Islam will keep growing because we as Muslims believe that true guidance comes only from Allah. We can give as much da'wah as we want, but Allah is the one who ultimately changes the hearts. The growth of Islam is a type of divine intervention. So why are you fighting against the divine? Just submit to the truth, submit to the one true God, and you will finally feel at peace. Because only in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find peace. Anyways, let's look at this clip from the video and respond in kind.
I believe that God is absolutely one, both in essence and in personhood. And I do also believe, and you are going to conflict with this, that the Trinity entails polytheism. What do you guys think about that?
I disagree, obviously. I believe that if God is strictly monotheistic, it actually serves more problems than it solves.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Did I just hear that correct? Did she just say strict monotheism serves more problems than it solves? Am I hearing that right? So if you're against strict monotheism, you kind of just proved Chorus's point, that the Trinity entails polytheism. If there's a strict monotheism, then that means there's another type of monotheism that's not so strict. You see, this is what Christians have to resort to. They have to redefine what it means to be a monotheist. They know deep down inside that the Trinity does not fit so nicely within the standard definition of monotheism, so they're forced to create new categories so they can sleep at night and not feel like they're pagans. Oh my god, babe, wake up. I just had this horrible dream where I was worshipping 3 gods, but I kept lying to myself saying I'm only worshipping 1 god. Isn't that crazy? That's literally Christianity. Wait, what? No, it's not. Did those Muslims get to you again?
Yeah, boy.
For example, I would be curious to know from you, what would prompt a God who is strictly monotheistic, alone, and essentially isolated, to decide to become a relational God? That would mean that he went from being alone at one point in time, and then he changed to become a relational God in order to create creation. And the issue is that he essentially changed. And if God can change, then I would conclude that God is not eternal. And even more scary, if God can change to become a relational God, then that means he can change again and decide that he doesn't want to be a relational God. But the distinction is that with the Trinity, we have a God that has always been relational because he's triune in his nature. We have a God that is love by his very essence. So when he decides to create creation and relate to them, it's not a foreign concept to him, unlike it would be with Allah. The Quran, as you know, introduces nearly every surah with the most merciful and the most benevolent. And my problem with that, again, is how would Allah be able to be merciful if he is strictly monotheistic? And in order to demonstrate that mercy, he would have to have become a relational God.
Oh my God, Allah. This is why it's so annoying listening to Christian apologists. It honestly gives me a headache. Islam is false because God changes. If God at a certain point in time becomes relational, then he changes. And anything that changes is not eternal. Okay, fine, sure. then why the hell are you a Christian? If you think Islam is false because of God changing, which by the way is a straw man, you're straw manning the Islamic position on this, but putting that to the side, even if I were to accept your wrong presupposition, this still doesn't explain why you're a Christian. Like, do these Christians even think before they speak? How can you use such an argument as a Christian when you literally believe your God can be a human? God cannot enter into time and be eternal at the same time because this is a contradiction. You know what else is a contradiction? The Trinity. Your entire religion is logically incoherent, yet you're trying to refute Islam on logical grounds. This is why my blood pressure rises when I listen to these clowns, and if it wasn't for Coraz's flawless, perfect responses, like genuinely, mashallah, Allahumma barik, her responses were brilliant. Honestly, if it wasn't for that, I would have had a stroke. No, I'm kidding. Astaghfirullah, I wouldn't have a stroke. You know, putting all the jokes aside, it's honestly such a huge blessing to just, have normal health. May Allah protect us from all kinds of diseases, whether it be heart problems, kidney issues, lung damage, cancer, whatever it may be. And anyone who actually is suffering from these things, we ask Allah to bless them and grant them shifa.
Okay, perfect. So do you believe that the persons of the Trinity are merciful to one another? Because mercy in this instance would imply that one of the persons of the Trinity is doing something wrong. And also another point that I wanted to touch on is you said that there's a problem with, and I'm going to quote your words verbatim, God being strictly monotheistic. So you don't believe strict monotheism?
Not in the sense of Tawheed.
Not in the sense of Tawheed. Okay, then in that case, you're a pagan. So let's see how this pagan will respond to Coraz's questions.
Not in the sense of Tawheed. Now, to answer your second question, mercy is something that is relational, but it's a derivative of love. Allah, to my understanding, isn't love. So if God, who is love and who has always been love, becomes a relational God, the natural derivative would be to be merciful. What essentially I'm saying is it's not an extension for a God who has always been love to when he comes into relationship with someone else to be mercy. But a God that is not love, it would be foreign to him to all of a sudden be merciful. And it would also be problematic because it shows that he was not merciful for all eternity.
What the hell, bro? You didn't even answer the question. Like, honestly, I'm so confused. I don't even know what the heck she even said. Okay, so hold on. Let's get this straight. God is love, and mercy is a derivative of that love. The Islamic God is not love, so therefore he can't be merciful. What? This is so trash, honestly. Straw man on top of straw man on top of garbage. First of all, God is love. What the hell do you even mean by that? You believe your God is the God of the Old Testament. How is the God of the Old Testament love? He's anything but love. And then she says, mercy is the derivative of that love. Okay, that still doesn't answer the question. If mercy is relational within the Trinity, then one of the persons of the Trinity must have some eternal need or suffering. If not, then mercy is just a concept without any context, and you can't call that relational.
Okay, perfect. I want to make sure that everybody else is included, but I'm going to respond to that point right there. So there isn't a problem with God eternally possessing the ability to do specific things. For example, you as Christians believe that God is a jealous God, right? You don't believe that God was jealous before creation because he has nobody to be jealous over, right? Because jealousy in this instance is going to be talking.
Oh my God, look at her smile. Why the hell is she smiling? How can you smile while getting cooked? Either you're displaying false confidence or you're just an idiot.
Talking about people worshiping other gods. You don't believe that God was jealous before creation because unless you want to say that the persons of the Trinity were worshiping other gods.
Okay, I have to admit that Cora is cooking. To bring up God's jealousy, which by the way is mentioned all over the Bible, is brilliant right now because it completely backfires on them.
Then you'd have to say that God in that instance would have changed. And on top of that, you guys...
Abe, yaar, ye dobara kyun has rahi hai? Oh my God, why is she smiling again? Stop smiling. Don't you realize you're getting cooked?
also believe that Jesus incarnated and he is the second person of the Trinity and he took on a second nature. That is also a change to God because God went from having one nature to participating in the hypostatic union and having two natures. So you as a Christian cannot have problems with God changing because within Trinitarian framework, you guys believe that God changed as well. But I want to hear from you guys as well.
So I want to talk about the part where you mentioned the jealousy and God is love. So
I want to talk about the part where you mentioned God and jealousy. Of course, you're not going to talk about how your God changes and takes on a second nature. You know, we're going to conveniently ignore that topic.
let's get this clear, right? The Bible says that God is love. So that's not something that he does, that's something that he is.
That's not something that he does, that's something that he is. Yes, he was so loving in the Old Testament that he commanded genocide. He was so loving that some Christians started to believe that God of the Old Testament is different from the God of Christianity. The Marcionite canon didn't even include the Old Testament. So before you start yapping about love, try reconciling between the brutality of the Old Testament with your lovey-dovey theology.
So now that we have an understanding of that, we know that it always existed because of the triune relationship. The Father loves the Son loves the Father, the Holy Spirit binds that love. All right, so when you mention, oh, was God jealous? Did he act upon jealousy? No, jealousy is righteous in the way that God acts because it is an extension of his love. So it's not that, oh, they were jealous of each other. It's the same concept with mercy. Mercy is an extension of his love. Not that, oh, he had to be merciful to his creation to then be merciful. No, he is already love. So what stems out of love? Mercy. What stems out of love? Righteous jealousy. That's what stems out of it. So I think you have a misunderstanding of, oh, how God acts upon jealousy because you believe in a Unitarian God. So your God does that. But on the other hand, our God doesn't do that. Our God embodies love.
Perfect.
Okay, and guess what? You just yapped for so long, and whatever you said doesn't even answer the relational question. Why don't you focus on what the question is instead of smiling and daydreaming about love?
So you mentioned God being love and so on and so
Yes.
forth. Obviously, according to you guys and according to Christians, God is love. Do you guys agree that God is the greatest conceivable being? The greatest being that you could possibly think of and so on and so forth. And you guys obviously believe that shared love is better than just, possessing love within yourself.
Correct. Yes.
And do you guys believe that there is a form of love higher than that? Or is shared love the highest form of love?
Shared love is the highest form of love. Self-directed love is not.
Okay,
It's not
perfect.
the highest form.
So would you say that God being triune shows that God has the highest form of love, right? Because he's sharing love with two other persons, right? You'd say that, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Shared love,
so-
corporate love, relational love is the highest form of love.
Okay, and would you also agree that sharing love with more people is greater than sharing love with, for example, only one person? Would you agree with that?
Where are you getting with this?
Oh, where are you getting with this? I love that because she knows she's about to get cooked.
Yeah, the place that I'm getting at is if you believe that love in and of itself, in order for God to be love, he needs to be expressing love within his essence, relational love, and you think that God is the greatest conceivable being, and you think that that's why Trinitarianism is true, because God needs to be doing this, then you would also be accepting that it follows that God should be more than three persons.
It never was.
Never. Guess what? She single-handedly just broke the Trinity with their own nonsense. With their own lovey-dovey, cozy, fuzzy, always hug me, Starbucks drinking, extra whipped cream type of theology. It was honestly such a breath of fresh air seeing a Muslim woman defend the religion without compromising any fundamentals of Islam and staying true to the Quran and the prophetic methodology. It was truly a breath of fresh air. This is actually a reminder to the Muslims that women can definitely make great impact in the da'wah. They have a role, they have a duty, and they definitely have the precision and the sharpness and the intellect. And Cora is just one of many examples that we've seen in recent years. We hope this momentum continues and benefits the ummah as a whole. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum.
كانت النملة تمشي مرة تحت المقطم فارتخى مفصلها من هيبة الطود المعظم وانثنت تنظر حتى أوجد الخوف وأعدم